part of what I do have an objection to still in the PAST Act is that it is, and if y'all read the PAST Act, I mean, most of it is we're taking away this comma and replacing it with a semicolon. Like it's a big waste of time to read what's going on there. Most of it is nothing. But like with HISA and the racing world, they came at that basically through the commerce clause. And there's a lot of that in the PAST Act. Part of the reason that we're federally regulating this is because you could sell that horse across state lines. You could take it to an auction. There's other people's money involved in here now. We've got transportation involved. And so we're coming at it from a consumer protection sort of an angle. With racing, we have gambling, and so you have the same sort of thing. And when HISA was implemented, it was the biggest clown show that you could possibly imagine, and all in the name of being better for the horse. So a couple of examples there. They came out and started dictating the type of shoe that you could put on the racehorse. Well, they were very specific about the shoe that you could use. Now, here's the interesting part. The shoe didn't exist. It was not a commercially made shoe. And all of a sudden, July 1st comes around and everybody has to use this shoe. And so now they're having to try to modify things. And now we are in an inspection project. We didn't buy a keg shoe that fit the criteria because it didn't exist. So we have to modify. And now Joe's got to measure something. And you know, it could only have a 2mm rim. And so that was totally theoretical. This shoe didn't exist. It hadn't been in play. We don't really know what happens when we put this on a horse and we go fast. And turns out what happens is their butt sweeps out from underneath them. And so they had a bunch of horses and jockeys that were getting hurt, and they made some amendments. And now you can have a 4mm rim on the hinds only, except they didn't actually change the written law. They just said, we're not going to penalize you if there's a 4mm rim on the hind. So now they got you in a catch-20. We're going to let you race, but at any point in time, we all know you've been guilty for this. And so if we decide to target you, we have all of the ammunition that we need. So that's sort of a mechanism in place. Is it just terrifies me of giving the government that kind of control. And again, this is not conspiracy theory stuff. I'm talking about stuff that has come to pass in the recent past. So I'm completely on board with you on that notion of self-regulation, and we are utterly failing at that. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. Like you mentioned, dressage. There was a study that came out not long ago. It was one of these cumulative studies that looked at a lot of other studies and years worth of tape. And even though horses behind the vertical in dressage is supposed to be outlawed at this point, they found out and statistically proved that the judges were significantly favorably judging it. In other words, you were at an advantage to be doing behind the vertical stuff, even though the rule book technically says you can't do that anymore. And so that's a self-regulation issue. That's the judging, right? Just like you said, if we weren't preferentially rewarding the horse that is sore and everybody knows is sore, then there would be no advantage to doing it anymore, and it would go away of its own volition. If only we would self-regulate, right?
Well, I'll tell you what to do. Go to Shelbyville, Tennessee, the last Saturday night in August. That's the night they crowned the world grand champion Tennessee walking horse. And when they call the last class in the arena, they do it one by one. They announce the back number, the horse, the rider, and the owner, and they come in one at a time under a spotlight. Just go sit in the stands and watch. And I promise you, I'll bet you the biggest steak dinner that money can buy wherever you want to go. I'll bet you that you will be appalled at what happens. The most crippled looking horse that comes in the ring will be the one that gets the biggest applause and roar of the crowd.
Well, I believe you. I definitely can't contradict that, but it's a shame.
It is, and I got so sick. I loved the horses and got to the point I hated my job when I did that. I could not do something different fast enough when I got to that point. And I've been called a bunny hugger and I've been called a tree hugger. You can't imagine some of the stuff that I've been called. But let me tell you two things I don't have to do anymore. I don't have to lie every day of my life, and I don't have to mistreat the horses to make a living. And that was every day of my life prior to that. When it was during show season, it was a daily process because you didn't soar the horse all at one time. You did it over several days because you wanted the horse to be optimally in response to the chain. You didn't want him so sore that he couldn't go. You wanted the right reaction to the chain, so you had to work at it. But the whole thing's based on a lie. And when you live a lie every day in the world in your career, then that lie takes over in different facets of your life. And when I decided to get out of that and do something different, it freed me of a lot of things. In what I hope over my journey is somebody else wanted to experience what I have, I could help them with the journey where they wouldn't have to lose as much and give up as much as I had to give up to make that same change.
Well, I can certainly appreciate that. One of the, I kind of say it as a somewhat of a joke, but anytime I'm doing presentations on bits and all, I start with anatomy and we talk about body language and a lot of that stuff of this is showing dysfunction. And I always put a little warning in there of, I'm going to warn you that once you start seeing this stuff, you can't unsee it and you're going to see it everywhere.
Exactly.
And that's the world I live in at this point. Like I cannot watch rodeo anymore because the handling of the horses and the mouths and all this, just I just can't stomach it at this point. But like I'm very leery of, I'm not going to ever say that that's abuse. I guess I come at that the same way that you do, in that I want to be the change that I see, and I can take your horse and we can make a few changes and we can talk about how you use your hands and all of that stuff. And if you read their body language at all, you're going to see that horse in about 10 minutes go, oh, thank God. And he's just going to let down and give the biggest, like the
Absolutely.
horse is going to tell you you don't have to believe me at all. You just watch him and you're going to see the proof coming right up, so I don't know what the answer to all this is either, but I'm kind of on board with you, and hopefully we can change some minds and some hearts and get people to just look at it a little different way, and the horse winds up the better for it. And
Well,
so do we.
you know, everybody asks me what kind of guide I use, and just like you said, the expression of the horse is mine. If he's conflicted, if he's in pain, all you got to do is train yourself to look at that. I tell people at my clinics all the time, you get up with your husband or wife every morning and y'all get ready to go to work together and y'all dance around each other in the kitchen, or you dance around each other in the bathroom and hardly have any conversation whatsoever. You can have a toothbrush in your mouth and need to go to the sink and not have to say, hey, move. Your husband or wife can look at you and tell. And if we just spend enough time to just notice that much about our horses, their world would be a whole lot different. A whole lot different.